This is Ask the Governor with Louisiana Governor John Bel Edwards. It's your chance to speak with Governor Edwards and ask questions that are important to you. The phone number is 877-217-5757. This is Ask the Governor on the Louisiana Radio Network.
This is Jim Inkster. Thank you for joining us. I'm your moderator, and Governor John Bel Edwards is here for his final Ask the Governor show of 2017, number 21, since he took office last January of 2016, and he is here to take all comers. If you have something on your mind, this is your opportunity to visit with the governor before the year is over. 877-217-5757. And before we go to the phone lines, a few items. We lost Judge Jim Brady. I know you knew him well, and he was a fine gentleman.
He was a fine gentleman. I'll tell you, I was happy to know him, obviously, but his wife, his kids, they're great people. He was just the consummate gentleman, and he was a great lawyer. He was a good judge. He's going to be missed. And I've talked to so many people, regardless of their political persuasion, who just held him in such high regard. And I'll tell you, Louisiana lost a very, very good man in Jim Brady, but we should all be thankful for the work that he did here in our state over so many years, actually decades, to make our state and make our country better.
And Governor Kathleen Blanco is battling a grave situation. She is doing so gallantly, and I think that would be expected of her.
Yeah, you know, she's a very strong person. She's faced a lot of adversity over her lifetime, and she's won just about every battle she's ever had. Because of her strength and her faith, I believe that she's going to find a way to win this one too. We certainly will keep her in our thoughts and prayers. And I had an opportunity to visit with her last week at a Christmas party at the governor's mansion, and I can tell you her spirits remain high, and she's confident that they're going to be able to beat this. But it's certainly going to be tough, and I would ask all the people around the state to keep her in their prayers.
And one of your colleagues from the Louisiana House, Chris Broadwater, who was a member of the Republican Party, but a neighbor of yours, he surprisingly decided to give it up. I'm sure in your own way, you're sorry to see him go.
Well, I am. Chris is a good, conscientious member of the legislature, and certainly not someone with whom I always agreed. He didn't agree with me. But we were able to talk, and as a result, in many cases, we were able to bridge differences, and sometimes we weren't able to do that. But I wish him well in his future endeavors, and I look forward to working with whoever his replacement's going to be. And because that replacement's going to come from the Hammond area, it'll be somebody that I know pretty well, probably.
Does that say something, though, about the landscape? These lawmakers have been in and out of session almost continuously the last few years, and you have a fellow like Broadwater who's a dedicated House member, and he just had enough of it.
Yeah, well, look, I don't know if that would be the problem, the number of sessions, and we have had 6 in 2 years, or whether it's just how contentious it is. And I have a lot of legislators telling me that they're just not having fun the way that they used to, not so much because of the work or the number of sessions, but just the way the legislature operates today. It's a much more partisan organization, and it's causing some issues. But I don't want to say that that's why Chris Broadwater decided to resign from the House. He may have other reasons, and I want him to speak for himself. But certainly, I have an awful lot of legislators telling me that it's not as fun to be there anymore. They don't feel like they're being as productive as they should be. Quite frankly, it shouldn't take all these sessions to fix our problems. But you know, unfortunately, we have problems going forward. It's fiscal cliff, and more legislative sessions will be required, not fewer.
You've mentioned a few days ago and again today that a special session may be a necessity, but only if something's going to get done.
Yeah, I'm not going to call one for the sake of calling one. And look, I think we can get a majority vote out of the House and the Senate to do what we need to do to fix the cliff in a responsible fashion, a balanced fashion. But you got to have a 2/3 vote on most of those issues. And you can only get that with support from leadership. And so I'm working with the House Speaker and the Senate President and other members of the legislature to see if we can fashion a compromise that we can embrace and support and go forward and get the requisite votes. fix this cliff. Not asking for new revenue. It's revenue neutral solution is what I'm asking for. There will still be some serious budget cuts relative to the continuation budget, which is an additional $400 million that we will have to work through. But the $1 billion in revenue that falls off the books, I would like to replace with permanent structural tax reform that doesn't produce more money, but produces the revenue in a fair, predictable, stable manner that will grow with the economy over time. And I think we can do it. And by the way, I think we're going to do it. The question is, do we do it in February, or do we go into a session in March without the ability to really pass a budget, pass capital outlay, and we end up in a short, concentrated special session in June with just a few weeks to go before the new fiscal year? That would not be the way to move forward, and that's what I'm hoping to avoid.
So February is the ideal.
It is the ideal, and what really works is between Mardi Gras and about the 1st of March, because on the 12th of March we will start our regular session. Now, as you know, Jim, I'm required to submit a balanced budget proposal to the legislature in January. I'm going to do that on January the 19th. And that budget proposal will not be the budget I want to implement, because it's going to reflect $1 billion less revenue that we can only take from a $3.5 billion slice of the state general fund budget. And so the cuts are going to be very severe on higher education and healthcare, because that's the two big pots of money that are available in that $3.4 billion of discretionary state general fund. But if we don't have an agreement with the House and Senate leadership in principle to fix the cliff by that January 19th date, I don't intend to call a special session.
The jobs numbers have been good this year. I'm sure that's something that you're satisfied with.
Well, you know, to say satisfied, we still have a long way to go, but we're so much better off. And right now, the unemployment numbers are almost a full 1.5% lower than when I became governor. It was well over 6.2%. Today, it's 4.8%, the lowest since May of 2008. You know, the very best social program in the world is a job, and the only thing that beats a job is a career. And so we have to continue working in Louisiana to facilitate job creation. And we've been doing that with good success, but it's not mission accomplished. There's still places around the state that have not benefited as well as others, and we're going to keep working.
Your number is 877-217-5757 for the Governor of Louisiana, John Bel Edwards. Show number 21 for Ask the Governor with Governor John Bel Edwards, and we'll be back after this pause on your station. You're listening to Ask the Governor. I'm Jim Inkster, your moderator. Michelle Southern is producing, and Governor John Bel Edwards is here to take your calls at 877-217-5757. Alberto in Jackson Parish. Alberto, you're on Ask the Governor with Governor John Bel Edwards.
Yes, sir. I was asking that what are we doing to stiffen the laws for those who are vandalizing these road signs among the rural areas, especially when people have had those roads for years and are just now getting those road signs for their children to be able to catch the school bus and a warning to make sure safety is provided?
Alberta, thank you very much for the call, first of all. And I don't know that we're currently engaged in any effort to strengthen the penalty associated with destruction of this type of property, the vandalization of road signs. But probably we need to do a better job of enforcing the penalties that we have, which, as you know, is very difficult. A lot of times people are just riding down the road and they're joyriding and they're doing things they shouldn't, like shooting out the window at these road signs and so forth. Obviously something we would prefer they not engage in. But I will have a conversation with law enforcement authorities, especially with the head of the state police, who happens to come from Jackson Parish, Colonel Kevin Reeves, and I will get with him and bring this up as a subject that he ought to take a look at, and work with chiefs of police and sheriffs and other law enforcement agencies across the state to see if we can do something about it.
877-217-5757 to talk with Governor John Bel Edwards. Jeff in Baton Rouge. Hi, Jeff. You're on the air.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. Hello, Governor.
Hi, Jeff.
I just recently moved to Baton Rouge. I've been coming back and forth for the last couple months from Arkansas, and I know it's a topic to everybody, but has anybody thought about doing anything with the traffic situation in Baton Rouge? I realize that there was an influx of people over the last 10 years and stuff like that. You just see no type of major road work that you see in other major cities across the South.
Well, Jeff, first of all, we're not doing as much as we would like and as much as we should. We are severely constrained by revenue stream that is 30 years old. The gas tax, 16 cents is what the state gets. It's been the same for 30 years. Inflation has whittled the purchasing power of those 16 cents down to 7.5 cents. And it's very difficult for us to undertake the major capacity-related transportation infrastructure projects such as are needed in Baton Rouge, especially the east-west traffic along the I-10-12 corridor. Having said that, we did in this last session in 2017 support a task force proposal that would have increased the gas tax in exchange for a list of enumerated projects to be built. And a lot of that was focused on capacity in South Louisiana along that corridor, including right here in Baton Rouge. We simply can't do everything that people want us to do on traffic with the existing revenue source, but that's not going to prevent us from doing all that we can with the resources that we have. And we are going to look for new innovative ways to deliver projects. We're going to really focus on public-private partnerships. And we do have some work that is scheduled on I-10 in the not-too-distant future that will help, especially if we take that one stretch just on the east side of the bridge where it's constrained down to just one through lane of travel because of the Washington Street exit, and reconfigure those exits and keep that at a minimum of 2 through travel lanes. That's going to help. But it's not going to be all that we want it to be. And so we're going to keep working on this, and I'm going to keep working with the business community and people at large, because it isn't just commerce that needs to flow. It's when you're trying to go to church or work or get your child to soccer practice or to a doctor, it's important for quality of life. And so we're going to keep working on that, Jeff. But thanks for your call.
Thank you, Jeff. 877-217-5757 is your number, toll free. Mark in Baton Rouge. Hi, Mark. You're on with Governor Edwards.
Hi, good afternoon. Hello, Governor. I wanted to thank you for everything you did for us after the flood last year and still doing. And you went to bat for us many times, and you were very animated doing so. Thank you for that. This hurricane season we had for 2016 was extraordinary, and I want to know how this changes our perspective going into the 2018 season. Surely it would be different from the beginning of this year after what we saw. It was really incredible. And I wanted to hear your thoughts on that, sir.
Well, first of all, thank you for your call. And I will tell you there's a lot of work that remains to be done to fully recover from the floods of 2016. We've actually awarded $122 million to 4,200 homeowners thus far, and we are moving forward as quickly as possible to make sure that homeowners receive the assistance that they're eligible for without any undue delays. And so we're working hard on that. We appreciate the work that Senator Cassidy did to get some tax relief in the tax bill that I think passed the House today and is on the way to the President's desk for signature. It's going to be very helpful to the state of Louisiana, about $500 million in tax relief for our flood victims. But with respect to the hurricane season, I can tell you that it was a very busy season for the United States, including the Gulf. But we, for a change, and I'm very happy about this, we actually got off with a break because we had hurricanes that went into Texas. We had a hurricane that hit Louisiana, but it was moving so fast when it went through Plaquemines Parish that it didn't really do much damage, and then the other hurricanes went up through the East Coast. But, I think that having more active hurricane seasons is going to be the norm now, not the exception. And so we're going to have to do everything we can to prepare ourselves and mitigate against the risks of hurricane damage. That's one of the reasons I'm so happy that there's a bill right now in Congress that has an additional $600 million for Louisiana in hazard mitigation grant program funding related to the floods of 2016, because we can get those dollars, and with a 25% state and local match, we can do $600 million worth of infrastructure enhancements so that flooding in the future, for example, will not be as severe. So we're going to take all hurricane seasons seriously, and we're going to do everything we can in the meantime to make sure that we're prepared.
Bill in New Orleans. Hello, Bill. You're on with Governor John Bel Edwards.
Good afternoon, Governor.
Hi, Bill. How are you?
Short question for you. Given the income crisis that the state is having, what's it going to take to get the legislature to bring Stelly back?
Well, first of all, I'm not sure that's in the cards under any circumstances. It would be very, very hard to get a 2/3 vote for that. Now, there are some portions of my plan, and by the way, my plan is actually comes from the task force recommendations, a task force created by the legislature. So in that sense, I'm giving the legislature its own plan to fix the fiscal cliff. But it does have a couple of components that deal with the individual income tax, which is what Stelly dealt with primarily. One is on excess itemized deductions, which under Stelly actually were zero. We're trying to get them down to 50% from the 100% where they are today. That would help us tremendously, but even they're not trying to go to all the way to where they were under Stelly. And then you have the individual income tax brackets, which were changed under Stelly. And we are proposing that we change the brackets, not necessarily going all the way to Stelly, although that is something under consideration, but change them as we need to in order to make up the $1 billion in loss of revenue. But given what Congress is doing with the tax cut bill that is going to the president's desk, we have to see what impact that's going to have on our revenue, because it could have a positive impact because of corporate and individual income taxpayers paying a little bit more to the state because their deductions for their federal tax liability are going to be smaller. And so if that happens, then we certainly wouldn't have to move the brackets, or at least as much as would be the case without that assistance.
Bart in Baton Rouge. Hello, Bart. You're on the air with Governor John Bel Edwards.
Yeah, I just want to know why the state revenues always seem to increase and the budget always goes up. You never seem to be able to live within your means. Point in case, since you come into office, what, you spend another $4 billion a year?
Yeah, well, Bart, the premise of your question is wrong. That's not accurate at all. And in fact, it was 8 years in a row revenue came in below forecast, which has caused a lot of mid-year cuts and deficits to start the year. We finally have stabilized that particular situation. And with respect to the state living within its means, the state general fund this year, excuse me, is $1 billion less than it was 10 years ago. And if we're spending additional dollars, it's because of federal dollars that we have brought down principally around the Medicaid expansion. So the premise of your question was wrong, and we've been very balanced in the way that we've gone about having a balanced budget with over $600 million in state general fund cuts since I've been governor, another $300 million in savings, and then we've raised some revenue to make up the difference.
877-217-5757 is your number for Governor John Bel Edwards on his 21st Ask the Governor show, 5 days from Christmas Day. Quinn in Marrero. Quinn, good afternoon. You're on Ask the Governor. Hi, Quinn.
Hi, Governor. Thank you for taking my call.
Thank you, Quinn.
I'm calling. You're very welcome. I'm calling about the Department of Corrections. I work with abused and neglected children. I'm a CASA.
Yes, sir.
And some of those kids, well, they usually get me teenagers. Anyway, they wind up getting into trouble afterwards. They don't have parents and things like that. And I so happen to have two of my former kids that are both in the same institution, which is Hunt. And the public corrections policy is one person can't visit two different people. even though they're the only people I see, or they have prisons all over the state, and they don't really have anybody else to visit them, especially this one kid. So I only get to visit one of them, and the public corrections is like dealing with a bureaucracy.
Well, Quinn, first of all, I want you to stay on the line because I want to get some information so we can get back in touch with you. I was unaware of that policy, and there might be a really good reason for it and may not be, or there might be some circumstances under which an exception can and should be made. And I'm assuming that on the same visit, you're not allowed to see two different people, but you can see both of them, but you have to go multiple times to make that happen. But I'm going to get with Secretary Jimmy LeBlanc and talk about that particular policy, especially as it relates to people such as yourselves who've been CASA volunteers and developed a positive relationship with these individuals that could be helpful as it relates to their rehabilitation and preparation to reenter society. And by the way, thank you very much for volunteering with CASA. That's extremely important. I did a lot of work in juvenile court as a young lawyer, appointed to different cases, and I saw firsthand the great work that was being done by CASA volunteers, and I appreciate you doing that. But please give your contact information to Tucker, and we'll get back in touch with you.
877-217-5757. We're halfway through the hour, and we have another half hour to go. If you'd like to talk with the governor of Louisiana, John Bel Edwards, and once again, your number is 877-217-5757. We'll return after this brief pause on the station that you're listening to, and we have about 20 of them on the network for the governor. So back in short order right here on your station. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for Ask the Governor. Governor John Bel Edwards is with us, and your number again is 877-217-5757. Doing show number 21, 5 days before Christmas Day. Your holiday plans, have you decided? You know what you're doing?
Well, we are going to celebrate here in Baton Rouge. It's just so much easier for us to stay home now. And by the way, I had to be 50 years old and governor before I could stay home on Christmas. Otherwise, I was going to my mom and dad's house or to my in-laws' house. But we will do that. And, of course, we're going to go to church on Christmas Eve as well. But Christmas Eve will be the Edwards family day, and then Christmas Day itself will be my wife's family. And, we're looking forward to that and hopefully getting some time to rest and recuperate during the holidays as well.
Do you know what you'd like for Christmas?
Well, I've actually, I'll tell you, I went duck hunting over the weekend and realized I need some really good waterproof camouflage rain gear. And so that's what I'm looking for Christmas. So I hope Santa Claus is listening.
I must say, Governor, you're the best dressed governor we've had in a long time.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the comment, and I guess the folks who are listening over the radio just going to have to take your word for it.
Well, you're well dressed. Do you have a specific tailor?
No, I really don't. I mean, most of my clothes just come from off the rack at different department stores. But my wife has a lot more to do with the clothes I wear than I do.
Oh,
She'll lay out what I'm supposed to wear along with the tie in any given day. She
has good taste.
I'll tell you, Donna has been an exceptional first lady for the people of our state, and I just appreciate her so much. She's a good person, and she loves children, especially having been a school teacher. But the one thing that really, in addition to advocating for public education and music, art, and movements in our schools, she has really taken to the foster care program and trying to make sure that we do better by Louisiana's children who are in foster care. And she spends so much time doing that, and I really appreciate it.
Barry in Mid-City, Baton Rouge. Hi, Barry. Good afternoon. You're on with the Governor John Bel Edwards.
Good afternoon, Governor. Thank you for taking my call.
You're welcome, Barry.
This is Rabbi Weinstein. I can recognize the voice. Rabbi?
Thank you, Jim. I'm delighted to have a chance to ask the governor how he is responding and what he's feeling about the controversy with the state police and its former superintendent. I imagine this is really a very disturbing situation for you, Governor.
Barry, it obviously is, and things have come to light that if true, certainly indicate certain abuses of power, and liberties were taken that were improper, and that's unfortunate. I will tell you there have been a couple of things that came out that I happen to disagree with. One of them, personally, I disagree with the legislative auditor when he says that the use of the residence on the state police compound constituted a taxable income, I guess, for Colonel Edmondson, because there's a three-part test, and as best I can determine, both under Governor Jindal's administration and certainly while I was governor, he meets all three parts of that. But the rest of it is concerning, and I will tell you that I'm very confident, I should say, that the current state police colonel, Kevin Reeves, is doing the right things in terms of restoring morale and making sure that that agency earns the trust and confidence of the people of Louisiana. And I look forward to his leadership, being impactful in that way for a long time to come. And of course, there's a lot of allegations out there right now, and we're going to see how the dust settles. But clearly, it concerns me greatly, as it does a lot of people around our state.
Thank you, Barry. Kelsey in New Orleans. Kelsey, good afternoon. You're on the air with Governor Edwards.
Hi, hello. Thank you for taking my call.
Thank you, Kelsey.
The reason why I called was this is something that's been in my mind a lot with the recent hurricane season and the flooding that we've been having down here. Is I was wondering how Louisiana plans to divest itself from the oil and gas industry and give more incentives for renewable energy to come to the state. I personally think that we are...
All right, go ahead.
Well, Kelsey, thank you very much for the call. And I don't think you're talking about as a source of revenue. In terms of the dependence on the oil and gas industry, in the early 80s, revenue from that industry accounted for 42% of our budget. It's down to less than 6% today. So we have diversified, but I think what you're talking about has to do more with climate change and so forth. I can tell you the demand for natural gas and for oil is going to continue to increase. Those are natural resources that God has blessed us with, and they're so integral to our economy and to the well-being of our people that I don't believe we're going to do anything in Louisiana to lessen the dependence. But obviously, as technology becomes available, so that we can burn things cleaner, obviously we need to take advantage of that. And because natural gas burns so much cleaner than coal, that's one of the reasons why it's in such demand today. And one of the reasons that we are pulling ourselves out of some of the economic problems we've had here and the poor job creation is because of all the demand for natural gas for export. So we're liquefying and exporting natural gas from Louisiana, and that's going to continue to grow. And I think the environment is going to be improved because that natural gas will replace coal, which typically burns, obviously, in a way that's much more harmful to the environment. So we have to have a balanced approach going forward, and we do have an awful lot of things happening in Louisiana around alternative fuels, but as the market will allow for that to happen, it's going to happen. But right now the market is still creating demand for natural gas that we have and that fuels so much of our economy and creates so much of our jobs. And certainly we're going to stick with that.
Allie in Slidell. Hello, Allie. You're on the air with Governor John Bel Edwards.
Hi, thank you for taking my call.
Thank you.
I've got a question. The state has a big restoration project going on out here that's supposed to rebuild, but it's flooding us. It's going to do the city of Slidell, the businesses, awesome. But for us poor people that are living more to the coast, we're already seeing the side effects of getting flooded.
Allie, I'm hoping you'll stay on and give Tucker your contact information, because I'm not sure which restoration project you're talking about, or whether it's something that the state is doing or that the local government is doing, and what the implications are with additional flooding there. But certainly, if you're right about that, then we need to see if we can make some changes so that doesn't happen to you and to your neighbors. But I'm just going to need some more information from you on that. But I will tell you, coastal restoration is a major priority for us, and we're going to move forward as best we can with the master plan, which is based upon science, and of course it envisions $50 billion over 50 years, and we only have a small amount of that in hand in terms of the revenue sources that we can use. But for the first time really ever, it's less of an academic exercise, and we are starting to move forward with major plans, with major projects, especially the Barataria and Breton diversions and some other projects. But please stay on and give us some additional information. We'll get back with you.
Aaron in Baton Rouge. Hello, Aaron. You're on the air with Governor Edwards.
Afternoon, Governor. Always
Hi, Aaron.
appreciate these shows and your transparency. That's admirable. I had heard you express a couple positive feelings about our tax reform bill that's being looks like signed by the president any minute now.
Yeah.
With the additional income through state taxes, and then also Senator Cassidy's funds that he got allocated to us in that tax bill. But how are you reconciling that with the fact that a lot of these tax cuts, of course, are going to benefit the super wealthy?
Yeah, well, when I spoke favorably about it, I was just being factual, and that is, if in fact this is a tax cut bill, and it reduces the tax burden, the federal tax burden on corporations and on individuals in Louisiana, then that should produce more revenue to the state of Louisiana on the individual and corporate tax returns that are going to be filed with our state. And the truth is, we're going to have to see exactly what the final language looks like, and we're going to have to study it and make that prediction. But if this truly is a tax cut bill, it will have a positive impact for the state of Louisiana. I've never expressed an opinion one way or the other, because I think the jury is still out on what the impact of this bill will be. I do know that it envisions creating, I think, $1.5 trillion worth of additional debt over 10 years. That is certainly problematic. But I do appreciate, and I was speaking favorably about Senator Cassidy's work to get some tax relief related to the floods of 2016. I'm unequivocally in support of that.
877-217-5757. We have another segment with Governor John Bel Edwards, and we'll return after this brief pause. Thank you for joining us for Ask the Governor. 877-217-5757 is your number. And Bernie Pincinat, the veteran pollster from Southern Media and Opinion Research, has a fresh poll out, and his survey shows Governor John Bel Edwards with an approval rating in the state of 65%. That's ahead of Donald Trump, our president, at 48%, and also ahead of U.S. Senator John Kennedy at 51%. Your thoughts?
Well, first of all, it's gratifying, but I know that polls are snapshots, and you'd rather have a good number than a bad number, and 65 is great, but we have to keep working every single day, and we've got a long way to go to finish out this term and get into the election season for 2019. But those polls are going to come out whether you want them to or not, and so it's always good news to see a positive number, and it kind of reaffirms that the people of Louisiana appreciate the moderate, balanced approach we've taken to solving the challenges here. And it's been a difficult 2 years. There's been no shortage of challenges, and we've had to make some very, very hard decisions. But the state is absolutely doing better today, much better today than the day I became governor, and I think the poll just reflects that.
Well, with the election less than 2 years away, I'm sure other candidates look at poll numbers, but that said, does it help with your agenda when you have good numbers?
Well, I think it helps. It helps in terms of being able to sit down and talk with legislators, for example, about the different challenges that we have and the approaches to them, and working together and that sort of thing. I think it helps, around the just in every conceivable way. It helps to have a high poll number. I can't imagine what it would be like to, be a governor with the numbers, for example, that Chris Christie had the last couple of years of his term. And it just makes it much harder for you to be able to get anything done because people just see that there's no upside to working with you and they're better off working against you. So it's important, but they are snapshots and they can change relatively quickly if you stop doing the things that people believe in.
Smith in New Orleans. Hi, Smith. You're on Ask the Governor with Governor John Bel Edwards.
Hi. I was wondering if there was going to possibly be any expansion of the budget for Codafil. I mean, cultural tourism is like a pretty hefty industry in Louisiana.
All right.
Well, thank you for your question. Codafil is important. Now, there's a lot of people listening who won't know what that is, but it's the Council for the Development of French in Louisiana. And it is very important. It's something that as a legislator, I should say, that I always supported. And we are protecting the funding at its current levels as best we can. I will tell you, when you're dealing with a fiscal cliff of $1 billion and the budget deficit that we inherited for $2 billion in our first full fiscal year, it's not easy to grow any program and to invest more. But we have prioritized it in terms of trying to hold that budget steady. And certainly it's one of those programs that I would like to reinvest in over time as we are able to do it. And I always get a big pleasure out of going out to schools, French immersion schools, but talking to parents and kids who are participating in the programs there. And I think it's really important for the state of Louisiana to preserve its culture. And a big part of that is the French language. And those funds are used to bring in teachers, for example, from Belgium and from France and from other places to make sure that we have the educated folks who can teach French in our schools. And I'll tell you, the kids who participate do so much better, not just in French, but in all of their subjects. And so we know that it's worthwhile, and I do support it.
Wendy in Metairie. Hi, Wendy. You're on the air with Governor Edwards. Wendy?
Hello?
Yes, you're on the air, Wendy.
Yes. Hi. I want to first wish the governor and his family a Merry Christmas.
Thank you, Wendy, and the same to you.
I'm part of that 65% approval rating.
Okay. Well, thank you.
But I do want to tell you, Mr. Edwards, I have driven in Los Angeles and have felt more safe on the highways there than I do on the I-10 driving through Jefferson Parish in my area. And there's never a state trooper anywhere to pull anybody over who's speeding. I would like to know, will there ever be a presence of state troopers on our highways?
Well, the answer is yes, and I'm surprised to hear you say that. I know that that I drive along the highways quite often and I see state troopers, but this will be the second topic that I get with Colonel Kevin Reeves on and discuss, because we do have a division of responsibility largely where the state police are patrolling state highways, but principally our interstate system. And so I will be talking to Colonel Reeves, particularly about I-10 as it crosses through Jefferson Parish, and I hope and expect you will see something different in the very near future.
Thank you, Wendy. James in Scotlandville. James, you're on the air.
Yeah. Hello, Governor.
Hi, James. How are you?
I'm doing terrific. I just want to thank you, first of all, for being our governor. And I just want to commend you for the work that you are doing. And hopefully that you will stay encouraged and keep doing what you're doing.
Yes, sir.
And secondly, I'd like to thank your wife for allowing you a lot of time to do what you do and participate in all the community activities. And I wish you well.
Thank you, James.
And you have my vote now and in the future.
God bless you. Thank you, James.
All right, James, thank you. The Advocate's been running this series on tax breaks, and today their headline editorial, Too Many Breaks, Too Many Tax Breaks Hurting Louisiana. Is that a culprit when it comes to managing the budget?
Well, it certainly makes it much more difficult, and I will tell you, we've done some good work on that. it really started in 2015 in Governor Jindal's last year, when we took a number of tax credits and rebates and other tax expenditures and made them less costly to the state of Louisiana. One of the keys to fixing the fiscal cliff is going to be to remove the sunset on those changes and let those changes go forward. But if you look at a state the size of Louisiana and you just add up all of the tax expenditures, and those means the expenditures that we make out of the tax code, and they are more generous than we can afford, and especially as it relates to the industrial tax exemption, which we did rein in last year, but it takes a long time before that to start producing real results, because there's basically a 10-year window for all of the exemptions that were previously granted, but they weren't tied to job creation, job retention, and didn't have any input from local government, and all of the ad valorem taxes that weren't being paid were tax revenues that would have otherwise been collected by the local government. So we are looking at all of those things, and that is one of the areas that we're going to be focused on in fixing the cliff, and I do largely agree with the advocate on that, and I haven't read the article from today to see which specific programs that they're talking about, but it is something that I agree upon, and it's something, by the way, that we campaigned upon, and that is that we ought to reduce tax expenditures. That is spending. It's just spending through the tax code, and we need to reduce that to help us solidify our budget.
Evelyn in New Orleans. Hello, Evelyn. You're on with Governor Edwards.
Thank you very much. I've often wondered about the number of personnel you have working on troubled juveniles, and whether or not they coordinate their efforts with maybe school personnel who work with troubled youth.
Well, Evelyn, it's a great question. I can tell you Dr. Bush runs the Office of Juvenile Justice, and he does coordinate his activities, broadly speaking, with law enforcement agencies, whether they're sheriffs, with the court system, especially with juvenile judges. And I will have to find out exactly which initiatives he has, if any, that deal particularly with schools. But obviously, I believe that he does. I can't tell you that for sure on this particular phone call, but we will look into that. I will tell you, we are trying very hard to not institutionalize kids when at all possible. We like to keep them in the community. We actually like to keep them in the home, and we see that there's a better result when we're able to do that, and that's the focus that we have going forward. But we have to do better, because the state of Louisiana has lagged behind the country for a long time in terms of juvenile justice, and I believe we have the right leader now in Dr. Bush. I know his heart is in the right place. He's very capable, and of course he's resource constrained, just like all of the agencies that we have, but I've seen a very positive difference since he's been in that office.
Governor John Bel Edwards will show up for show number 22, first one of 2018, on January 10th. We'll be a week early, January 10th, so mark your calendars, 2 o'clock on the 10th of January. We've got about 45 seconds left. Do you have a holiday message?
Well, I do. I would like to wish everyone out there a very Merry Christmas. And looking forward to 2018. I hope it will be the best year ever for you and your family, and certainly for the state of Louisiana. And as I always do, I ask people to join their prayers to mine for our country and for our state, and leaders at all levels, that we can come together and solve our challenges and move forward in an era of prosperity where we're going to make sure that our children and grandchildren have opportunities that we could have never dreamed of. And I'm confident that's going to happen here in Louisiana.
Well, thank you, Governor.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Thank you for joining us for the show today. And once again, January 10th, the Governor will be back for more of your questions just 3 weeks from today. Until then, thanks for listening and stay tuned.